Hey guys! Hello, it's your boy Stinkfist, the fist that always stinks. Now today we're gonna have to do a redo since a lot of people are quite salty about the last tier list I did. Well, actually it's not a tier list if it doesn't have any salt. Let's set up a power structure like this. B tier is good. B tier equals good. Not bad, good. A tier equals very good. S tier is insanely good. Again, I repeat, S tier is insanely good. Now this can be top of arena without much trying. And S++ is not that much different from S tier. They're really close together. But it's just a smidge above S tier. Only to differentiate between the small jumps in the power level. Going lower, we have C, we have kinda meh, so it's kinda mediocre shit. We have D is bad, and E is totally trash, dumpster tier, unplayable in PvP. So, let's get started. First off, let's go over the Druids. Yes, the famed Druids. Now, first thing on our list is the Druid. And let's start with the balance. Now, balance in Arena, I would say, is kinda meh. I would put it in the C tier. So it's not good, it's just kinda meh. You can have some decent results, I would say, if you really try hard and you know what you're doing and you're really good at it and stubborn. However, I think balance suffers from some of the issues that can be mitigated just by going Dream State Restoration, which is a balance spec that basically goes half and half balance and resto, a bit more into balance, but we'll get to that a bit later. Now, next up, we have the Feral. The Feral, I would say, is good. Now the Feral has some flexibility. It still has all the Druid spells that are very vital to Druid, which are Cyclone and Heals, but it also can pump out some additional CC with the main, and it can deal quite a bit of damage while not being able to be rooted or slowed. Moving over to Restoration. Restoration deserves to be put in the S++ tier. Restoration is possibly the most broken spec in all of TBC. The Restoration Druid has all the advantages and very few disadvantages. It can run away, it cannot be stopped, it has plenty of CC, plus it can deal out some damage, and it can always hide as a cat. Now, when I say restoration is S++, of course I don't mean deep restoration, which I would put a bit lower. However, I do mean various balance restoration combos, where you go into balance about as deep as you want, and you go into restoration about as deep as you want, while of course always taking Feral charge in Feral. Moving on, let's talk about the Hunters, which, you know, for some people is quite controversial. Let's start with Beast Mastery Hunter. A Beast Mastery Hunter I would put in B tier, since as some people pointed out, it is not that good once you get deep into the later stages of TBC, and it only has one giant cooldown to burst people down, which makes you and your pet immune to CC. However, I still think this spec is good because of the CC Hunter can provide. Hunter can always scattershot into trap somebody, maybe followed by another healer's long CC chain, making it pretty much impossible to break. Marksmanship I would put into A tier. Marksmanship is a very good spec because it doesn't suffer from the Beastmaster's scaling problem, and with its staple silencing shot, and the CC hunters get can set up quite the kill scenario. Coupled with a healer, this can be a devastating spec to play in 2s or even in 3s. And lastly, we have survival, which, as far as survival goes, I'm not a huge fan of, but some people strongly advocate for its potency. However, only viable in certain compositions, and it doesn't offer that much power compared to Beast Mastery and Marksmanship. I would put it in the meh tier, together with the Balance Druid, meaning you can of course make it work if we really try to. Now next up we have the mages, starting off with Arcane. Now Arcane, I wouldn't say is the biggest deal in WoW. I would put it in the C tier. Let's put it in the C tier. It does have some glaring issues, most notably the one being that it's not Frost, and its slow is easily dispelled. It cannot cover it up with anything else, unlike Frost Mage. It doesn't get that much burst that Fire gets, or that much CC and survivability as Frost does. I would put it in the C tier because you do kind of can make it work, and it's not bad, but it's not impressive at all. Moving on to Fire. Fire goes, of course, in the B tier. Fire is good, but only if you try really hard to make it work. Fire can be some good CC. It can root people. It can disorient people with its Dragon's Breath, and it has the Blast Wave, which always provide a nice chunk of additional instant damage, as well as, Fire is pretty much recognized for its incredible power. Now Frost is, in my opinion, in S tier. Frost has insanely good talents. Frost has insanely good spells. Frost has survivability, it has CC, it has mobility, and it can set up quite an amazing chain to kill somebody. It also fits into many different team compositions, and you can pretty much carry games as a Frost Mage. Frost Mage in TBC gets the addition of the Water Elemental pet, which gives you another Frost Nova as well as some extra damage. It has the Ice Barrier, the Ice Block, and it can spam Frostbolt and pretty much slow somebody down to the point of no return. There's nothing more to be said about Frost, so let's move on. Now let's talk about Paladin. Now the Holy Paladin, I would say, is bad. It's not unplayable, but it's bad. The Holy Paladin is very limited by its use of Holy Shock as their only instant heal, and they only have 2 additional heals in the arsenal, all being Holy School. So if you get interrupted, you're kinda deadly dicked, However, Holy can have some pretty nice utility benefits to a 5v5 team, and it provides some nice blessings. However, I think it is pretty lackluster, especially compared to others. Now moving on to Retribution Paladins, which I would say are in B tier. Retribution Paladins are good, but they're not that good. Actually, I would rate them in between C and B tier. They're kinda one-sided and one-dimensional. They very much rely on reactive play, but they can chunk somebody down, especially with the help of a Restoration Shaman and a Wind Fury Totem. However, it's kind of RNG-ish, and if you're not well geared, you are gonna suffer in PvP. Moving over to priests. Discipline priests, in this example, are comfortably in the S tier. In my opinion, they're the definition of the S tier. They have everything a man can want apart from mobility. They do not have mobility. However, they do have amazing crowd control. They have multiple ways of dismantling the enemy team via mind control, mana burn, or just plain old dishing out damage. They heal incredibly well, and they're very, very dynamic to play. Also, with Shadow Word Death, you can interrupt enemy CC by damaging yourself after a short delay. So you can fuck off that incoming polymorph or blind if you're really, really good. They have a high skill cap, and they're very rewarding to play. Moving on to Holy. Holy is not a thing. So yeah, don't bother. Now, Shadow is B tier. Shadow sits comfortably in the B tier. Some might argue it's in the A tier, and I might even reconsider this after I experience it. However, Shadow is really missing some things that it gets later on in Lich King, and it's kind of painfully obvious once you get into those situations. It has some pretty nice damage, however, most of it just being in the Shadow school, you can't do much when you're locked out of your school. Now moving on to the rogues. Yes, the mighty rogue. Let's start off with the assassination, aka the mutilate spec. Now I would say the mutilate spec is in the C tier. It's just meh. You can make it work. You can really try hard and make it work. However, you're lacking so much that you're not getting from the subtlety tree that you're just so much less viable than everybody else. And that's why deservingly they go into mech tier. We go combat. Combat is not a thing. Nobody plays combat, so that's that. And of course, subtlety. Now subtlety goes in the S++ rank. Why does subtlety go so high? Because subtlety literally has everything. Now everything rogues had an issue with in classic, they get a solution to that problem in TBC. Namely, you get Cloak of Shadows, you get Shadow Step, and being a rogue, you have everything else covered already. So rogues are incredibly insane. You can CC, you can deal damage while CCing, you can sneak around, vanish, and do amazing shenanigans with a Frost Mage in your team, or just you and a Frost Mage. You can do some incredible stuff, and rogues fit pretty much into every team composition there could possibly be. I would say the Elemental Shaman sits with the Holy Paladin in the D tier. Why? Because the Elemental Shaman is a one-trick pony. It has the Nature Swiftness instant double crit gimmick, and apart from that, it is pretty weak, immobile, and lacks CC. Now, Enhancement on the other hand, sits one rank above in the C tier. Now, Enhancement can apply some pretty good pressure, especially with Bloodlust and Wind Fury totems for your teammates. However, it does get dismantled by some certain heavy crowd control classes, and I didn't ever feel that threatened by Enhancement Shaman. Moving on to Restoration Shaman. Restoration Shaman, again, I would put in the C tier. I wouldn't say they're good, I would say they're meh. They do provide Wind Fury totems, which are great for rogues, but much more so for red paladins and warriors. However, they're very limited with their healing. All of their heals are casted, and their main heal of the expansion, namely Earth Shield, can be easily dispelled by anybody who has a dispel. They cannot cover up the Earth Shield by other buffs since they don't buff a lot. Penultimately, we have the Warlock, and starting off with Affliction. Now when we say Affliction, we of course mean the SL spec, which goes 50 into Affliction and 50 into Demonology, being possibly the king of cancer in TBC. This playstyle for me was very boring, however you cannot deny its power, and it sits very comfortably in the super tier, the S++. It can play incredibly long games, it can drain your mana, and paired with the Restoration Druid, it's pretty much unstoppable in 2s and in 3s. It has an incredible amount of survivability, it can dish out a ton of pressure all across your team, and it even has crowd control. So it's pretty insane. Moving on, we have the Destruction Warlock, which I would say is B tier. I have a strong preference towards the Destruction Warlock, and I think a Destruction Warlock can really nuke you down if you're not too careful. They do suffer from some survivability and mobility issues, however, their insane burst damage is just that, insane. And lastly, we have the Warriors. The only viable spec for Warrior, the Arms Warrior, is, I would say, in the S tier. In the S tier it goes, it's up there with the Mage, it's up there with the Priest. It has no mana issues because it uses Rage. It deals an incredible amount of pressure with its Mortal Strike. It has good mobility, however, it is pretty reliant on a healer to help it out. However, that being said, just the sheer pressure a warrior brings is enough to carry you game after game after game. And that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching. If you stuck around this long, I would implore you to subscribe and hit the like button. If you think I put anybody anywhere wrong, please do comment and let me know. And we'll have probably a fruitful discussion. Thanks so much for watching. Stinky out.